Okay, I'm driving kind of in New Mexico and heading back. Gonna hit Pagosa Springs eventually. Anyway, I wanted to tell you kind of a story that happened, and this is sort of going out to my dad. I told my dad about my video YouTube channel. He's probably trying to figure out who this is. Anyway, hey Dad, Jeff, how you doing? Anyway, Jeff, I want to tell you a story about Dee. For those who don't know, Dee was my stepmom, and Dee was just very loving to me, very wise. And one thing that I've been trying to do with my dad is really just have constructive conversations and get to know him and talk about business, because we both really enjoy business. And really trying to keep the conversation on a positive front, on a constructive front, because like I mentioned earlier, when I first moved out to Colorado, the message that God had for me was, that I had to make sure that all my relationships had peace in them, and that no relationship was left in pieces. And so my dad, obviously, Dad, just scroll through, or Jeff, and I prefer to call my dad Jeff because that's it's a more honest answer of who he is. He's a great man. His name's Jeff. But anyway, we were kind of talking about my stepmom last night, and he was married to her for 8 years, and she was very loving to me, and she kind of came into my life in a very positive way, and she just was a mom to me for as best she could, even though she wasn't my mom. Anyway, Jeff, this story is call it the bird story, because one time, I never told you this, but one time Dee and I were we were out just on a walk, and around the Plano house, my dad owned a helicopter company at that point, so he was busy working, and then Dee and Jake and I would just kind of all hang out, and anyway, so that we kind of became a little threesome, and we would go shopping or go to the movies, and Dee was just sweet to me. So we took a walk one day, and on that walk we approached kind of a park, and then we noticed that there was a bird on the ground that was injured. And of course, I was so young, I didn't know what was going on with it. But that bird was, it seemed like it acted normal. It was just on the ground, And then we noticed that as we got closer to that bird, it started flopping around. Of course, I was a kid, and I had my own little bird brain going on. So I just what's going on? What's going on? And passed this car. They like to go slow sometimes, even though there's no snow. Anyway, give me a second. Okay. Adjust my speed. Anyway, so Jeff, we were out, and this bird was acting normal, just on the ground, walking around, and then it started, once we started to approach him, the bird, it was a mama bird, we later found out, it started flopping around and flopping and acting injured, and had this, this hurt wing, and it was just flopping around. And anyway, once we backed off, it suddenly got better, swooped in, picked up her little baby, and flew away. And Dee, of course, I had no idea what was going on. So Dee, I said, I asked my stepmom, I said, Dee, what, I didn't say what the fuck, but I was like, what the fuck, what just happened there? And she said that was a defense mechanism, and that how mama birds, they will fabricate things to protect their children, and they'll act crazy to protect their kids, and they will, birds could talk, they'd probably say things, but anyway, that was an instinctual trait that mama birds have, to lie and pretend and fake, because Dee later told me that what that did is it took the attention off the children, the baby birds, and put it onto the mama bird, and it's basically like almost an invitation, like, well, come on, the mama bird saying, I'm hurt, I'm injured, you're going to come towards me to either help me or hurt me. And then I think now that I get older and I've gone through my own stuff and my bird brain has grown up, I realize that mama birds will do anything and say anything to protect their babies, and that's just instinctive. And I think what Dee was trying to say to me, or maybe the Spirit was trying to say to me through Dee, was kind of my own mom. My own mom at that time was having to fill in the gaps of my mom, and I think Dee, being a mother, being a female, knew that, at some point I would have to recognize with my own mother some of her own shenanigans and her own fakery and her own broken wing, pretend stuff was just a defense mechanism. And that was a real beautiful way that Dee was trying to kind of help me deal with my own mother issues back when I was a child. And she never once was demonizing of my mom. She never, I think she got frustrated with my mom, but she was never overtly, critical of my mom. And so, God or Jesus or Dee, whatever, was really just saying, John, this is how moms are, and you can't fall for their fakery, but you have to be compassionate. They're only lying like that because they're trying to protect their kids. And so, I guess the moral of the story is if you ever experience a mama bird acting crazy and making up things and faking things and pretending their wings are broken and flopping around, screaming, they're just fearful. They're just fearful. And the second thing is just to recognize that they're fearful and not to make them any more afraid. And I wish that Dee would have remained in my life, because I think I, having not grown up with a mother, I did not understand some of those dynamics. I'm the kind of type that's going to be like, that bird was lying, and I go research the species of the bird, but mama bird to baby bird was kind of teaching me, this is how mama birds do it to protect their young. And what's really interesting is Thaddeus Golas wrote a book called The Lazy Man's Way to Enlightenment, and he makes a very interesting point. He says the more cantankerous somebody behaves is evidence of their pain that they're going through. And it was a really interesting perspective when we encounter people that are faking and lying and pretending they have broken wings. They're in a state of fear, and when Thaddeus Golas said that, he's basically saying the more cantankerous somebody behaves, the more pain they're in. And the real practical application of that is the next time you're interfacing with somebody and they're really lying or they're hurting or whatever, they're lying, faking their wings or they're squawking, just remember what Thaddeus Golas said. And he said, we only do that when we're hurting. And when I got that, it really helps me to walk in compassion to people. And ultimately, if there's anything that Jesus was, he was compassionate. And I think Jesus would see people lying and faking and whatever, and he would see situations with compassion. In fact, if you go to you can Google the scripture. There's a scripture that says Jesus looked upon the people with compassion and then healed them. And so to kind of wrap this up, I don't want to get in the habit of making too long of videos. When we start looking at people with compassion, we'll heal them. We'll heal ourselves. Jesus says, start asking yourself the question, what would I do if I were them? Like Dee, my stepmom, would say, well, how would you behave if you saw a giant human walk towards you, your babies? Well, you'd probably attack, and if you couldn't attack, you'd probably fly away, and if you couldn't fly away, you're certainly not going to leave your babies. You'd probably act kind of crazy. Well, that's exactly what that bird did. That's just a real quick example of how God speaks through nature. And then if you just blend nature with the Bible, you kind of see like, I see the wisdom in that now. I don't. It's that mama bird was just trying to protect their baby birds, and for what that's worth, Jesus, if he was anything, and we debate a lot of issues on who Jesus was. If Jesus was anybody, he was compassionate, and when we start viewing people with compassion, I think the world will change and we'll have healing, because that's what people need. Is they need compassion. And too many situations we respond with everything but compassion. And if there's one thing that I'm learning in Colorado, and just in hikes or long walks, and you can see the terrain is empty outside of New Mexico, it's still really pretty, is, we can talk a lot about spiritual stuff, and we can have all these kind of spiritual discussions and throw around our labels, but at some level we have to arrive at first base. And that first base, if you're seeking a spiritual life, first base is compassion, and we have to begin to move into compassion. And even with my own mom and my dad, my stepmom, my family, we have to respond first with compassion, because Jesus says in the Bible, it says he looked upon the people with compassion and then healed them. And so my question to you is, which came first, the healing or the compassion? And in my opinion, is the compassion was the cause, and the effect was healing. So whatever situation you're in where you see somebody that's acting cantankerous or stupid or silly or flopping around, squawking, whatever fill in the blank, when we start looking at people with compassion and with an intention to be compassionate, we'll heal them and we'll heal ourselves. Have a great day.